your family, either your father or your mother.
Sorry, I'm just.
And I,
Can I
sorry?
interrupt for a sec? I've had many
Yes,
people who are in different time zones ask me if I can record. So I just pushed record, but as I was doing so, I thought, oh, maybe I should ask the people here if they mind. Because okay. If anyone objects, I guess,
An alert came up too that you can
yeah,
accept or
I
leave.
heard that too. But anyway, there you go. Sorry to interrupt, Aleda. If you want to keep going,
it's
you
okay.
can. Okay.
I really enjoy reading about that difficult process that for some people it's a process that takes their whole life, is struggling with finding their own place, their own rules in the world beyond their primary relationship.
Yeah.
And this book particularly I liked because regularly the primary relationship that is explored when it's about a woman is the relationship with the mother. And now I want to read motherhood. But in this book, the relationship with the father.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I quite liked that the struggle, how the author describes the struggle that Mira is having in putting a distance between herself and her father. And that strong feeling of kind of feeling relieved because he died, but also feeling really guilty because she's kind of feeling liberated because he died. And I wouldn't call it a codependent relationship. I would call it more like, I don't know, it's different ways to connect with people. And her father had a deep connection with her. And the whole time she didn't know how to correspond to that strong connection, you know? And I don't know, for me it was a good book. And it kept me thinking about my own relationship with my mother or my father and how I'm struggling. I'm 38 and I'm still struggling on finding like a right place for our relationship and trying to correspond to them, but also being faithful to my own rules and my own beliefs and my own morality even. So I liked it. Thank you for recommending.
Yeah. Okay, it is of Heti's books. Before this trip through it, I would have said it's my least favorite of what I've read of hers. There's still a couple of her books that I have, her early books that I haven't gotten all the way through. And I might still say that, but this being my third time through, the first time I thought I didn't understand it and I needed to read it again. So a few months later, I made my way through it again, and still I thought there was just so much going on that I needed to think about it, and eventually I just kind of moved on, I guess. But I know Heti has said in response to publishing Motherhood, which was the one right before Pure Color, many reviewers and people talking about the book, even people interviewing her when she was talking about the book, she grew frustrated by the fact that it was so easily pigeonholed into like an elevator pitch. Motherhood is about a woman in her late 30s thinking about whether she should have a child. So that's what everyone like, and that's true of the book. It is at its very base, it is a woman who is running out of time to have kids, thinking about should I have kids. And in response to that, because she thought motherhood was about so much more than that, about time and about art and about parenthood and just a bunch of different things, she said part of her goal in writing Pure Color was to write a book that no one could say it's about this one single thing. So then in reading the book, to me, I'm like, okay, I see that, because I don't, if you said what's Pure Color about, I'm like, I'm not sure. She's really upset about her dad dying, and it's about grief and how it's consuming. But it's also, there's like a unrequited love story, a sapphic love story, sort of. That's only, I started thinking about that on my third trip through. That like they actually kind of love each other, and it's like a sad love story. Annie and forgetting the other one. But anyway, I was wondering, this is what I wanted to bring to the group here. If you're telling your friends, I'm in this book club when we read Pure Color by Shelia Heti, and they said, oh, what's that about? What would you say, what's the book about? I'm not done, but you can't go anywhere. What's the question? Sorry, team. Go. Sorry, 12-year-old negotiating. Anyway, does anyone have any ideas about what they'd say the book is about? I have no idea, Camden says in the chat. Okay.
Maybe a woman dealing with grief and unrequited love, but it's more like not really a story, more instead of knowing what's going on in the world, you're hearing every single thing going on inside of her head to the point where it almost doesn't make sense. But that isn't that what your thoughts are like? Just a rambling mess.
Grief is a big piece, the chat is saying. Taylor says it's about the end of the world, which it kind of is, especially the first bit. You think that's what it's going to be about. It's such a weird book because it seems to me so like literary and real, but then there's talk of gods and birds and bears loving each other, and then she spends half the book inside of a leaf.
In a leaf.
I forgot about that part, right? Because that was the beginning of the book where like you were either a bird, or a bear or a fish, right? And like they each had their own character trait. And I remember her dad was a bear, and I can't remember.
She's a bird, I think.
Bear herself, maybe.
She's a bird, I think.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
But birds are critics and artists. Artists and critics are both birds. They can see both sides of a thing by walking on land and flying above. I don't know. And bears, fish love communities or the society as a whole. They're looking out for the good of society. Bears connect more closely and intensely with individuals or 2 or 3 people that they focus all of their care and attention on. So her dad was a bear, and he seemed to have all of his attention on her, like his love and everything that he had went towards caring for Mira. And Mira was a bird, so she couldn't return it exactly like that to him. And Annie is a fish, which is why she's a social worker or a fixer or whatever, because she's interested in fixing society, sort of. But again, even with those distinctions, it's hard for me to pinpoint what that means. Is it an allegory? What are we to do with it?
I felt like that area was really underdeveloped.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It was really interesting. It's the first thing that they say, boom, you are this, or this. But then like, I don't know, she like makes kind of allusions to it, like, here and there. But I think that it could have been, there could have been more to that idea, because that didn't seem to be like the problem.
Yeah.
Like there seem to be like so many other things at play, like I might be a bear or a fish, or a bird, but now I'm a leaf. So
exactly.
3 pages.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And then, okay, I just, as you know, or may not know, I don't know, I had her as a guest on this coming episode of my podcast. It should be out in October. So we talk about the book a little bit, but not in explicit detail, really. I didn't say what was it about, but we did talk about that idea of trying to make a book that no one could say what it's about. But we talked about her artistic process. Like for me, writing a book, I start at the start and I go to the end. And I think that might be more typical, but she says she spends years just writing until she thinks, oh, these things go together enough that they might make a book. Something like that. I'm sure it's more organized than that or more thoughtful. But when she was talking about her process, this book started to make more sense, not in that like the book as a thing made sense more as if like what's it about or what's it's trying to say, but the way it's structured and it seems to be like a mess of different things makes more sense if it's 5 years of journal thoughts pieced together, sort of. On top of that, I also know I feel weird with how much I know about Heti, but I also know that in the middle of writing this book is when her actual father, who she had a very close relationship with, because her mother was focused on work most of her life. They had reversed roles according to like stereotypical gender roles in the family. The father did most of the child rearing and spending time at home and all of that. He died in the process of writing this book. And so whatever it was before that happened, the book became more of a processing all of that in this, you know? So having sort of background info, I think the book makes more sense. She talks about when her dad actually died, she was in the room and she felt like she saw the world differently than she did before he died. And so it was this whole different way of seeing things. And I think that might be represented maybe in being stuck in a leaf and just being like all consumed, or like you get the idea that as she's in the leaf, if she let herself, she could sort of just become part of the tree and like leave the world behind and forget about everything, which I think many people grieving might relate to. I could just let this envelop me and stop going to work and stop doing the things I need to and disappear. But then
was like depression in a way.
Yeah, it reminded me of that too. If you weren't careful, you can let yourself in certain situations just like melt into the backgrounds of things and never come out. But there's something that like Annie triggered her to come out of the leaf or whatever it was. She decided I need to get back to.
Do you know why she dressed as a leaf to go see Annie?
No,
I couldn't figure that part out.
No.
Oh
yeah. I don't know.
I kind of thought, not for the leaf part, but and I could be remembering things a little disjointedly, but towards the beginning, like there was a part where she was talking about like Annie and wanting Annie, and at the same time she had talked a lot about these lamps, and then just decided the one day to just take that one lamp, and it was like her prized possession. And it was almost like when she decided to kind of put it all in, for Annie, that was kind of like the lamp. And then later on, towards the end, when she kind of isn't getting what she wanted, that unrequited love, was also around the same time when that lamp broke, when she, traveled.
Someone in the chat here just said, I thought she dressed as a leaf because Annie helped her out of the leaf. Kara said this. And some people are agreeing. or saying this is what they thought too, which makes sense. Like that could be that could be part of it, but I still feel like that's a little for I keep forgetting her name. Mira. I keep wanting to call her Marie. It's still strange for Mira to go, thank you for helping me out of the leaf. Now look at me, I'm a leaf. I don't know. She talks about trees. Mira, thanks. Talks about trees a lot through the book. Yeah, she does. She does. And I think that's kind of a pull through that she has regarding the beginning with God having this as his first draft, and like God the artist, and yeah, creating trees as his audience. And humans should learn to live as trees and like just watch life and be happy about it. I don't know. It's interesting, but I think I might have to read it again. I've never read a book 4 times. There's lots in it though, you know?
It's short.
It is short, yeah. And I read it, but I also listened via audio this time. And that was interesting. I don't know. I found that what Aleda was saying, in that she felt like she missed some things and needed to go back and start over. Even though I've read it before, I was feeling that way, that like my mind couldn't sort of focus in on it. So I started over too, but I was only like 20 or 30 pages in. But when I started listening it to via audio and reading along at the same time, I found the two of them really helped me get into it.
Something that really helped me was just letting myself be reading the book in the present, in the moment, because it's sort of like a philosophical fiction or something like that.
Yeah.
The author, she allows herself just to think and develop ideas that she has, you know, and also she experiments with different ways of narrating, different narrating voices. I was taking notes on how many different ways she uses to narrate throughout the book, and it's more than 6 or 7 voices that she uses. So it's almost experimental. It's almost like
for sure
a canvas where you use different colors and different techniques and like all together. I don't know. It was quite interesting. And once I quit on understanding every bit and understanding on finding like a line that put all together, I like it. And I really enjoyed how she talks about the different kind of connections that we develop with people through all of our lives. And that is not something that we can explain easily. Why do I have this specific type of connection with this specific people? And she goes with the philosophical, religious thing of saying there are beer people, fish people, and bird people. But we are always looking for an answer to that. Why do I feel so connected with this particular person or whatever, you know? Why this particular person helped me to move on from the grief? What that person give me to move on, you know? And not all people can help in that process. So I don't know. I would say just let go. enjoy. And
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, she does really rely. The book relies on the voice or the narration more than any plot, I think. It's not like there's a real chronological series of events that you can follow, but the voice is so unique and strange that I think that's where it, if you love the book, it's because the voice is pulling you along through it. And it's strange how the voice is so like declarative at the start, like it just seems like this is how it is, and there's no one's doubting it. That you know, after God created the heavens and the earth, he stood back to contemplate creation like a painter standing back from the canvas. Like, okay, sure, we're imagining that it's an invention by the author, but there's no room in the narration or the voice for questioning it. It's like this is what is happening.
She does that the whole book, and it's
Yeah.
really interesting to me. That's something that I didn't like about it, honestly.
Okay.
was that like I felt like a lot of time, you know, it's very philosophical, which I do like, but she's like espousing these like philosophies like they were like law, and it seemed like because it's just going here, there, and everywhere, that she's just saying stuff to say it. And then after she's saying it, she's like, and that's canon.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
I mean, she says like, you know, God did this and God did that, and then like later she's like, and God's not real, and you know, there is no God, and like what about that? Like right back to like, but then God's like this, and it's like I, as an atheist, like it doesn't like concern me at all, and I think it's interesting that like she's like all over the place with her like religious stuff.
Have you read Motherhood or
no? I haven't. This is my first Heti.
Has anyone read Motherhood in here?
I bought it because of this book.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it yet, so don't spoil anything big.
I won't spoil. There's nothing to spoil in the book. Well, here's the thing. It's interesting having you say this is so declarative. Like, I know it is. But to be like, that book, Motherhood, is so full of questions. The whole thing is going back and forth between like these big, huge, again, philosophical, but there's just, she's thinking hard again and again and turning it over from so many different angles and like, and thinking about life and the creation of life and the creation of art and your relationship with your parents and your relationship with yourself and mental health and all like, but she's doing it in all these, in fact, like a major like through line of that book is she has these 3 coins she calls, there's a name for them. They're a real thing in some religion, but she has 3 coins. She asks them questions, then flips the 3 coins. 2 heads is a yes, 2 tails is a no. So the whole part of the thing is asking questions and then continuing on the narrative based on the random answers these coins give her. And I don't want to start talking about motherhood too much, but I just think like it starts and kind of ends with questions in that one. And then she writes this new one as almost already admitting she wanted to do something opposite of her last book. And then this book comes out and it's like, this is how it is. This is how it is. This is how it is. And there's no questions. That's pretty interesting. I don't know what that means at all. I just think that's interesting.
I don't know if this is true at all, but I feel like when you're grieving, you kind of feel stuck like that, like in cement, like nothing's changeable and you're fucked and this is where you're at and this is how the world is. You can't do anything about it.
I also lost my dad like the Mira did in the book. Like I watched him take his last breaths and I thought the leaf symbolism was very on point. Like you just feel stuck. Your world has stopped, but everything else, everyone's just still going, but you're not.
Yeah. I have Facebook Live on or TikTok Live on again. And people keep inviting me to talk to them like a double screen on. I'm like, I'm busy, you guys. But I don't know. It's weird. Okay. Look, I'm not an annotator, but I tried for this time, and look how I did. Two sticky notes. Boom. First time I ever put a sticky note in a book. But I didn't mark it up. I just stuck it. Let's see where I stuck it. They're both within the first.
The only thing I like about not the only, but one of the things I like about e-readers is that you can just highlight it and move on.
True. I have a hard time with e-readers too, but I know a lot of people. I'm not yucking anyone's yums. It's just not for me.
Reading's reading in any form.
Yeah. Both of my sticky notes are in the first 20 pages. So here's the paragraph I stuck a note to. Perhaps God shouldn't conceive of creation as an artwork. Oh, I remember this the next time around. Then he will do a better job with the qualities of fairness and intimacy in our living. But is that even possible for an artist to shape their impulse into a form which is not, in the end, an art form? And I like thinking about that. It's taken me a long time throughout my life to consider myself an artist. But once I've like sort of accepted that as part of my identity, it's hard for me to do like any project without thinking of it as art. So I don't know if anyone else here identifies as an artist, but the idea of trying to do something, especially if I were to take, like she's talking about God redoing Earth, but trying not to make it art the way he did the first time. Is an artist capable of redoing a project, but not making it art the second time? I don't think that's possible. But maybe that's not something interesting to think about.
No, it totally is. It's funny to think about, like, because art, I think, is inherently flawed. It shows our flaws. That's part of what art is. You know, if it was just a machine making it and there were no flaws, then it wouldn't be that fun to look at. You know,
right?
And so, like, is the second draft even going to be good?
Yeah, no,
you know, if
not.
There's no daughters and like no art, like I don't know.
Yeah,
daughters are cool.
And it's even more interesting, sort of, that the people in the second perfected draft will have a strange longing for the imperfect draft.
That's the way it is.
I thought that bit was wonderful. Say that again.
That's the way it is with ceramics. I'm a ceramicist.
Okay.
And you spend a long time like getting good at your craft.
Yeah.
And then once you hit a certain limit in ceramics, then all of your pieces just automatically, it's on the wheel, pieces just start coming out perfect every time. And then you spend the rest of your professional like relationship with clay trying to chase back to that. It's called wabi-sabi, that like slightly imperfect like artist's touch that you kind of lose when you get really good at something. So I mean, that's a real thing, like longing to get back to that.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. That's interesting. It makes me like it more.
Cool. Any other thoughts around this? No.
I'm not an artist, but I do own some art books, and all of them are drafts, you know, like from all kind of arts, because there is some special thing about getting the idea out of your head, and that is particularly I don't know, I find it more interesting than the final piece of art. And the same happens with I studied history, and I used to do history. And the thing that I enjoyed most about the works of history is the draft of book history. You know, like when the authors were kind of trying to put together arguments, ideas together, and trying to find how to support those arguments. So I really enjoy all the bits that throughout the book are speaking about drafts and how the world is going to be different and how it's going to miss something once God, whatever that means, redoes it. Yeah.
I'm just looking at my other sticky note and I can't even remember what I'm trying to remember. The painting hangs before the spectator with the same qualities of frankness and meaninglessness as the person who is standing before it. One cannot feel dignified by it or lifted up by it. Oh, he's talking about the artist, Manet. I see. This is what I thought. Art, where does it say? Humans are defeated at the other side. Sorry. I don't think I can remember, except for there's one line that sticks out every time I read it where she says something about art needs to dress up. I'm sorry, I can't remember what this is. A person dresses up to go outside, and art must dress up too. But Manet's paintings are naked, bare, not only in his ridiculous subject matter, but spirituality as well. Okay. We probably won't be able to answer this, but what do you think that means? Art needs to dress up. This is one of her declarative things. Art must dress up. What do we think?
Well, art's communication, so you can't just lay your thoughts bare, which I guess this is what pure color is, right?
True. An artist knows himself to be an artist because of how he relates to his own sincerity, Maddie said. Then would there not have been some uneasiness with Manet in his painting? Does anyone have any thoughts about Maddie? He sometimes feels like just an extraneous character. At first I thought
about him.
Yeah. He's the last and greatest hope of the school or something. So to me, she's painting him as like a pretentious art student, but he's an art critic because they're all art critics. But at the first read, at the start, I thought Maddie was the sort of love interest. I thought she was going to be upset that he thought Annie was the perfect person, but then she fell in love with Annie. But then Maddie just kind of disappears. I don't know about that. What do we think?
Maybe because her dad died and she focused on that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do think her dad dying, like the way a loved one dying does, like it's almost like it, instead of being the story that her dad died and she's grieving from it, it's like we're in the middle of a story and her dad dies and she's grieving from it, and that interrupts the whole story. And whatever story it was going to be before her dad dies just stops and is kind of left behind. And now we're stuck in a leaf and we're starting this new story, which starts when her dad dies, if that makes any sense. Like in a typical book, you'd start here and go through. I feel like the book started here. It's weird, but it's going through, and then all of a sudden this thing happens, and the book is something else entirely. Both for the reader, but also for Mira. Whatever she was doing in life stopped and changed as soon as her dad died. We can think about that.
I forget. Did her dad die, and then she lost touch with Annie? I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Yeah,
she did. Does she go back to her because Annie's a fish and she wants her to save her?
Could be. Does someone remember? Did she lose touch with Annie prior to her dad dying or after her dad dying?
Prior to her dad dying.
Prior to, yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like they kind of met again. It's not that Mira looked for Annie when she was a leaf. Like they ran into each other with Mira being a leaf.
Didn't Annie come like by the tree that she was in, and like there's almost jealousy because she was with another person? Yes. I feel like I remember that.
Annie looked like she may be on a date with another woman, and they sat on the bench underneath the tree. Yeah. And there was jealousy. And it's like
there. It almost snapped her out of her cycle and be like, oh yeah, there was this person that I liked, and this other person is now reminding me how desirable they were.
Yeah. Yeah. I found it so, like, it's not much of a love story, right? You're not really invested in it either way, because you don't really understand, at least for me, I don't really understand the characters or what exactly is happening between them. But the bit where Annie leaves her photo in the book that she borrowed from Mira, and Mira doesn't find it till years later, and she thinks maybe she just forgot it in there, but on the back it says for Mira. But Annie was too cool or whatever to say, did you find my photograph? Whereas Mira would have just said, did you find the thing I left you? I found that so like heartbreaking, that like was just like a missed thing that Annie was too shy or something to. But I mean, it would have been a different book if that was important. I don't know. What do we think?
I forgot about that. I like that photo thing too.
Yeah.
But it seemed like once the dad dies, it's like a completely different story. Like that little stuff doesn't matter. She starts tackling like God and all this stuff.
Yeah. Say whatever you want about the book. That you couldn't have two people who have both read it and not have a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I really appreciate this. It's almost like the book is serving its purpose by just having a group of people talking about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books that are entertaining, they have a good plot and a climax and a completion, and you can talk about it for a few minutes and agree, yeah, this is a good book, but then this really gives you a lot of things to chew on. And as I listen to each of you talk about a particular area of the book, it reminds you of how it could connect to another area. And I think that's like one of the cooler things about it.
I was really like, boy, I did not like that book. I can't wait to talk about it in the meeting.
Yeah.
I was like so curious what other people had to say about it. I mean, it's clearly like written to be like thought-provoking and to like talk about it. So it's a perfect book club book, even if you don't like it. Like, I'm glad that I read it. I feel enriched from it. And like I said, I love being challenged by books, which doesn't happen as often as it could for me. I don't know. I'm kind of new to book reading.
I do think I do also think it's like Heti's books are not connected to each other, as in they're not even close to a series, but I do think they build on each other. Like, I think if I'm telling someone to read Heti's work, this is not the book I would start with. You could start How Should a Person Be, which is like Sheila's the main character of that book, but it is a character. And then in Motherhood, Sheila again is the main character, but she is a character. Like, they're all. And then in this book, Mira is the main character, but because I know that she wrote much of it as herself grieving her own dad, it just feels like they build on each other. It feels like, for me, she could never have written Pure Color if she hadn't already written 2 like experimental weird books prior. And I think you may not understand the book better having read the first 2. Like you won't understand Pure Color, the book, better, but you'll understand like Heti's sort of vibe as an artist if you've read her earlier works before this one. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's some people who just like they have a style, and you could pick up a book without having the cover on it or the title, and you'll be like, oh, this is Cormac McCarthy is an easy one, or Nick Hornby or Ann Tyler, or these different things. And I don't know if you could do that with Shelia Heti's work. Like they're so different. All of them are so different. But at the same time, they all fit into her weird, like artsy, philosophical mind bending. She doesn't give a crap really about like how novels are supposed to go. And she's like, no, I'm just doing this thing. Which is just a weird way to say, I think you should read her other books too. If you enjoyed this at all, especially Motherhood. Like I cannot recommend Motherhood enough. And yeah, but I'm kind of glad the book club chose this one, because I don't know if I would have picked it up again for years otherwise, but I'm glad to have read it again. So yeah. Are there any other thoughts before I leave?
Okay, I've got one more thought.
Okay.
So I had this conversation, a really long conversation with a client yesterday who is a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm an atheist. I've been living the atheist life for a long, long time. Don't talk about religion very much because it's a sensitive subject. Yeah. But so we had this whole long, like really cool conversation. And one of the things that she said was that Jehovah's Witness, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong to any of you Jehovah's Witnesses out there, but she said that there's like Jehovah's Witnesses are all just hanging out in the afterlife waiting for like the second draft of like humanity and earth and the world and everything. Like they're all just kind of like, you know, hanging out in this like kind of holding area, waiting for the next incarnation, which is going to be like totally paradise, you know. Yeah. No daughters, no pain, like no needs, that kind of like complete paradise. And I just was like, and she like kind of described it, you know, more thoroughly than that. But I was just like, man, that is really similar to like kind of the premise of the book I just read without getting into anything specific at all. And I don't know, I just thought that was like, I would never would have made that connection because like I said, I don't know much about like a lot of different religions. But like it was all, whoa, I wonder if Hetty's like an ex-Jehovah's Witness or maybe even a practicing one. I don't know.
I know she is unpracticing Jewish, like her family is Jewish, and she identifies a lot with the Jewish culture, if not the religion, as much as the religion. Like we had originally planned the interview for September 15th, but she messaged me saying, sorry, I forgot that's the day of, it was a specific Jewish celebration, which is the Jewish New Year. But so we moved it back a week. So I don't think she's Jehovah's Witness, but saying that, neither was I Jehovah's Witness, but I was fundamentalist Christian. And many people there don't talk about it in terms of a second draft or a better draft, but part of the reason they don't give a shit about climate change or global warming or anything is because like in their, you know, belief system, God is going to destroy Earth and it will just be a place of torment for 1,000 years before everyone's sent to hell anyway, or whatever, you know? So like, if God's going to do it anyway, then what the fuck does it matter to us? We should just do whatever we want right now. Like on top of that, evolution is a hoax and everything is a hoax, you know, so they just don't care. Not every Christian. I'm not saying that.
Oh no.
The sect
But
that I was a part of. So I can see how many people, like they talked about, we are not of this world. We are living for the eternal glory of Christ or whatever. And so it's almost like the afterlife is far more important than right now. You just have to make sure we get to the right place in the aftermath. The aftermath to me seems similar to what you're saying about a second draft for Heti or for Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah.
But I don't want to be the person to make this too long, but I was really looking forward to hearing like everybody's thoughts on like the ending of it. Kind of had like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Sort of set up on the last page.
I can't even remember how it ended.
I know.
Like a child.
I thought it was like a book, wasn't it? Like, I feel like I remember being like, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like a kid, and then her dad comes in,
right.
And then he tells her a fairy tale, and the fairy tale kind of has like the same characters of like the fish and the bear and stuff.
Yeah.
And the same like mirror name. So I was confused on that.
Yeah, it is confusing. And if you listen to it via audio, Heti does the audio herself, and she really like takes on a real childlike persona at the end, where she's like, will you tell me one about a bird named Mira who had a friend who was a beautiful fish, and you're in the story as a bear, and they all lived together forever? Like as if maybe the story we just read is the story that her dad tells her when she's a child. But he says, sure, I'll tell it to you tomorrow night. And when she's reading it, that's like, she does her like man voice, which doesn't, it's not, but then she's like such a child. Okay, I love you. I love you. I love you. Like, it's just so weird. Go to sleep.
They're saying don't listen to the last chapter of the book.
You were going to say that?
No, I'm saying, are you saying don't listen to the last chapter of the book?
I'm not.
She does a weird kid voice.
I'm not saying that, I don't think. I just found it so neat because in the actual book, there's no indication who's saying I love you, right? It's just saying I love you, I love you, I love you, exclamation point in repetition. But in the audio, the kid says I love you. The dad's almost tired of it. Tired, I love you. And then she's like, I love you. And he's like, go to sleep. And she keeps saying, I love you. I don't know. Like, it reminded me of my kids, just like.
Yeah, that part choked me up at the end because it reminded me of my son for like, I love you, not going to bed. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it is such a weird book. And thank you. Was that Taylor who said that to bring up the end? It's amazing that now I've read this 3 times. And until you said that, I forgot that the end is so weird and interesting. I just feel like it's such a small book, but there's so much in it that even after 3 reads, I'm like, I gotta read that again. But I'm not gonna do that because look, there's more than 300 books on that TBR list.
Is it possible? I mean, part of the premise of her relationship with her father is that he loved her too much, and he was amazing to her, and blah blah blah. And suddenly at the end, and now that you're saying how she narrates in the audiobook that last part, that maybe her dad also had moments where he also felt tired of her, or that it was also in her head, the fact that her dad was so perfect and so forever giving and blah blah blah. So it's questioning that last part. I don't. Oh my goodness! I like it even more.
I think that even comes through when they are stuck in the leaf together and they're having their back and forth about life and stuff. The way she narrates that too, it almost feels sometimes like the the father is like scolding her for what she thinks about the way the world works. And even she gets frustrated with the way he thinks about it. And does that come through in the just reading it? That seems to be a bit of the reason she wants to leave the leaf is because she can't live in the world the way her dad sees it. Yeah. But for me,
yeah, and isn't he saying like I didn't ask you to come in here with me.
Yeah.
Like you can leave. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that just came out more for me in the audio too. It's the way she narrates it. I don't know. Anyway, I think I'll wrap it up because it's after 8 where I am, and I got to put my girls to bed and everything. But someone asked in the chat, was that Alicia? Someone about next month's book. I have a poll up right now, and if you haven't visited it, you should. There are 4 books. They're all, I think, spooky, at least spooky adjacent for Halloween. Last I checked, Bad Cree was winning by like 2 votes, and I'd be excited to read that. But all 4 books are ones that I'm going to probably read anyway, so I'm just excited for them.
I just picked up the one with the creepy baby on the cover because it came in at the library.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I had just finished in August reading both Bad Cree and The Marrow Thieves, like back to back. So it was interesting that they both popped up on this list.
Yeah. I don't know much about any of them, but then also, so you can go vote and everything, and I'll stick by the poll, whatever wins there. So far, there's only 75 people or something who voted, and it says 300 and some people in the club, but I don't know how many people total are here, 18 or something, which is fine with me because 300 people in this would be a little crazy. Anyway, I'm trying to say you can pick of those 4 books. I'll make an announcement on the TikTok so people know that and maybe come here from that. But also, just so you know, this might be cheating, I don't know. Jessica Johns is coming on the pod next month. She wrote Bad Cree. So it would be similar to this in that we have our discussion about Heti's work after I've had my discussion with the author, but before that discussion is published online, probably. So if that's something that sways your vote, I don't know. It might be interesting, but yeah, there's lots of people coming on my podcast. I don't know if you're listening to it, but I'm really proud of it. And yeah, I think it's going to be cool as episodes pile up on each other. But again, thanks for coming. I'm just going to shut her down so that it's not awkward. Goodbye. See you later. Thanks. So I'll see you next time.